here's the moment of truth that I've waited only 5 minutes for, to see if I'm going to be dropping this motor out or what's going on. 129,597 kilometers. Uh-oh, I gotta make this quick, my battery's dying. Here we go. What the hell is that? That's not a knock. What the hell is that? Oh shit! What the hell is that? Okay, set her down. What the hell was that? That's not a knock. Well, the wink of an eye later, I got the valve cover off, and holy shit, have we got sludge. Now, remember, this car only has 129,000 kilometers. This is caused by one of two things in a 2.7 engine. Is a faulty water pump, which apparently this one's been changed, and I do actually see a brand new water pump down there. But the Superlube claims that there's a bad head gasket and that needs to be changed, but I found the source of that shitty rattle. We've got, oh, you can't even see it down there. The chain is so loose. See how far my finger's moving? Oh, you can see it. That's the timing chain. Loose as hell, ready to jump right off and bend all the valves on this engine. Okay, so now that we've determined that this engine is a piece of shit and that it has to be either rebuilt or replaced, well, I'm gonna make this video specifically for the do-it-yourselfer, somebody who wants to try and rebuild one of these and you want to drop the motor. So I'm gonna try and do this as close to as step-by-step as I can. I'm gonna try and make it real brief too. So stay tuned if you want to fix one of these guys. This is mostly just for Sebrings because I'm going to be doing specific processes. So the first step you want to do to removing your 2.7 Chrysler engine out of your Sebring is you want to get all the electrical connectors off. And to do so, you're going to have to remove this guy here, bolts in here, 10mm or 8mm. And you just remove all that, and you can unhook all your spaghetti, your ignition wires, coil unplug, fuel injectors, and you just want to follow the hoses here, your oxygen sensors, cam sensors, coolant sensors here, and around the back. Actually, it comes around, yeah, it goes around the back. I think there's one that goes onto the power steering pump. There's also your oil pressure switch at the very back of the engine by the firewall, crankshaft position sensor on the transmission, and your intake tubing hoses. You also want to remove your intake tubing hoses, and you want to take that bolt out here, and this just pops out as well. That opens up a lot of space. Oh, and before you start taking off connectors, negative battery terminal also helps. Okay, I just raised my car in the air just to get that back oil pressure switch out, and I'm seeing coolant leaking from the front corner of this engine. And you know what that tells me is that the water pump shaft seal is leaking, because that's where the coolant comes from, in this front corner. That thermostat housing's been replaced, so I know that's not leaking. And I'm thinking Superlube replaced this car with a faulty water pump. Well, how about that? We'll find out. To get the oil pressure switch out of this car, come underneath the vehicle. Just above the axle shaft, you'll see a cover, and there's 3 bolts. You gotta remove those 3 bolts. and you can see the wire that goes to it. Actually, you can't see the wire that goes to it, but it's right there. You just got to remove that. Also, if your oil pressure light's on, that's what you got to replace. Sometimes the wiring to that, because it gets oil coated and it wrecks the wire. Next, you want to unbolt this this thingamajiggy. I don't even know what it's called, but you got to take this off to get all this out of the way. And when you do that, make sure you plug up all these holes, because coolant will piss out of there, and you don't want to get anything in there. Unless you're taking the engine apart, it doesn't really matter, but still, plug it up. There, now take off all these hoses. Now you want to remove that back valve cover. And the reason you do that is because you have two power steering mounting bolts that are way over in the corner here. And it's a real pain in the ass to reach them without that valve cover being off. So once you do actually have those two power steering bolts off, I would recommend putting it back on, just so you don't get dirt in the engine. But I don't think that matters with the 2.7, because it's already dirty on the inside. Also, when you're moving the valve cover, make sure you take out your coil on plugs. That makes it 100% easier to get the valve cover off, because of the small clearances in between the firewall and this guy here. Now this valve cover was already off and just kind of sitting there. I wouldn't take this front valve cover off, but I'm just doing it just so you can see how sludged up it is. And I supply a brand new primary timing chain tensioner, which obviously failed. Look at that. Ready to jump. See, the water pump is straight down, and this timing chain goes down, loops over the water pump, comes back over, and goes around. So I think I see a new water pump, but I'm not sure. And the timing chain gets loose like this because you get water in the oil, because of one of two things. Leaky water pump, which is leaking water into the oil compartment, or you have a bad head gasket. But now that I've seen that that front corner is still leaking coolant, I am still believing that the water pump is leaking. So I probably could just change that water pump, redo the timing, and not have to take the motor out, but who knows what kind of damage it did to the bottom end. So I'm taking it out, and it's actually not that much harder to take the motor out and work on it anyways. So I'm going to pull the bottom end apart, and because I'm keeping this car, I'm going to make sure it's fixed right, and it's going to last me a while. So anyways, okay, next you got to remove both front tires. Now that you've got your wheel off, you have to remove the inspection covers and get to your serpentine belts. Now you're looking at your serpentine belts. There's two of them. What you want to do is take this bolt completely out, take that bolt completely out. This belt will come off, as well as this tensioner. Make sure you don't lose that. And take this bolt out completely, and take that bolt out completely. And then your power steering belt will come off, and then you'll want to go up on top, like I was showing you. Take your valve cover off, and there's two mounting bolts, one roughly right here, one roughly right there, and it bolts directly onto the head. And then your power steering pump will swing out of the way, and that'll give you clearance to remove the engine.